everybody. I'm Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. The aim of this podcast is to raise awareness about blindness, visual impairment, and disability in general, in a happy and light-hearted way. For those of you that don't know, I am blind. I was born with a condition called bilateral anophthalmia. Try spelling that one. It basically means that when I was born, my eyes didn't develop properly, so I wear prosthetics instead. The goal of this podcast is to remove some of the stigma and stereotypes around disabilities, whilst also having fun at the same time. Each week, I will be interviewing people from all walks of life, including some with hidden or physical disabilities like mine, and getting to know a little bit more about them and the lives they lead. This week, I am very excited to tell you that I will be talking to ex-stuntman, podcaster, and star of the Boy Who Lived documentary, the incredible David Holmes. My name is Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. Hi David, how are you?
Wow, what a lovely introduction. Incredible. Well, I am incredibly well and very honoured to be one of your guests, Evie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, do you know what? It is such a pleasure to have you on the podcast and so lovely to meet you. How's your day going so far?
Yeah, not too bad. The usual routine of waking up with my spinal cord injury. So a couple of hours of working with my care team, doing my usual stretches and normal morning routine of showering and stuff. And then I had the blessing of getting out straight into sunshine. Currently in southern Spain and making the most of it because I hear it is raining in England and the Isle of Man right now.
Yep, it's chucking it down. Do you know, it's been really sunny the past couple of days. It's been sunny since I would say about last Thursday. And I don't think it was meant to rain today, but it has literally been chucking it down. So you are very lucky to be in the sunshine right now.
Yeah, oh, I adore it. I mean, with my spinal cord injury, it makes a huge difference, temperature regulation. I actually can't control my temperature below my spinal cord injury level. So just being in the heat helps with pain and just overall mobility in the joints and the shoulders and the overall weight of my head on my shoulders. So, yeah, very, very glad to be warm and not damp and cold.
Gosh, yes, I can totally imagine. Now, you've kind of mentioned already that you have a spinal cord injury, and I know that that was the result of an accident. I also know that before that accident, you were a stuntman and you worked on the Harry Potter films. Now, I am a massive Harry Potter fan, so would you mind sharing some fond memories you have of working on set?
Oh, I have so many, Evie. Do you know what? My first day's work, I actually, by default, became the first Quidditch player in the world. So I was brought into the studios to do the first broomstick test. And I'd already read the first book, and I could, in my head, was very aware of, the game of Quidditch. And then, obviously, we were trying to create that in front of the camera. So turns out chucking a load of children out of an aeroplane is not really insurable. So what we did is we got a broomstick, and we put a broomstick on a pole arm rig, which is like a big seesaw, but with a weight cage at one end, and then me on the broomstick at the other end. And we put that seesaw on the back of a truck, and it was on this big, American flatbed truck. And then we drove it down the runway at Leavesden Studios, which is where we filmed the Potter films. That studios used to be a aircraft factory in World War II, so it had a massive runway. So we drove the broomsticks down, we drove the truck with me on a broomstick down the runway. And then lovely Chris Columbus, the director, was sitting on the back of the flatbed looking down a camera lens at me. And I was reaching for snitches and dodging quaffles, dodging bludgers and all of that sort of things, catching quaffles. And yeah, we ended that broomstick test at the top end of the runway. Chris Columbus got off the back of the flatbed and he was like, "Yeah, Dave, you were really in it. Thanks so much." And then he pointed to my stunt coordinator, Greg Powell, and said, "Greg, this is our guy." And that is how I got the job as lead stunt double on Harry Potter. And I don't think you could ever top an experience like that, or also claim to be the world's first Quidditch player. So I would say that's one of my fondest memories, but one of many.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is incredible. Yeah, I don't think there are many experiences that can top that, especially if you'd read the first book as well. So you knew how magical it all was. And then to be the first person ever to experience that must have been amazing. And I'm sure that all those fond memories you have, you can really look back on and treasure.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we after those first broomstick tests, it was straight up on location up into Alnwick Castle or Alnwick Castle, depends how people pronounce it. But that's in Northumberland, just north of Newcastle. And then it was like 5 weeks up in Newcastle, shooting on location. And I met Daniel, Rupert, and Emma for the first time at Goathland train station. And that's when the Hogwarts Express arrives and the kids depart and they meet Hagrid. So that was the first real official filming day. And it was just amazing to first meet the young cast and then just to see the scale of the production and then finally to interact with the amazing Robbie Coltrane.
Gosh, yeah, I can imagine how amazing that all would have been. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your accident and what your hospital journey was like?
Of course I can, yeah. So we were rehearsing Harry Potter 7 at the beginning of Harry Potter 7 filming. We were rehearsing some wire stunts for some of the action that Harry would undertake. Whenever there's a spell hit in the Harry Potter series, there was normally someone pulled on a wire as a reaction, so you would fly back. Now, a wire stunt is something I'd done hundreds of times before. And on this rehearsal, we were trying to build up just for it to be a little bit bigger and faster than what we'd usually seen in the film franchise. So we were building up the speed, and there was an unfortunate accident, and I hit a wall through no fault of my own at a very high pace. My chest folded into my nose, and I separated my spinal cord at the C6, C7 vertebrae, instantly paralysing me. So I landed in a slump at the bottom of the crash mats, and then rushed to Watford General Hospital in an ambulance, in an MRI machine after I was taking out my stunt harness because I had metalwork on it. The MRI machine showed the dislocation of the spinal cord at the C6, C7 vertebrae. And on your own body, Evie, you could probably say that's just below your collarbones. So just below my collarbones, I'm paralysed. So I had some function in two arms. Unfortunately, I've had some degradation on one side. So I now only have the left arm with some function. That gives me as much independence as I can gain. And then I spent, after the initial surgery where they relocate the spinal cord together, I spent 9 months in hospital. I had a few complications and stuff, and then was discharged. And then had to rebuild a life with a very different body and a very different outlook from what I was currently living beforehand. So, yeah, very difficult, but also I will always say breaking my neck made a man of me. Just like Harry, it forced me to grow up.
Right, okay. I mean, gosh, I mean, listening to you describe that, I can only imagine how, terrifying that must have been for you. I mean, in those sort of first moments where you were kind of being rushed to hospital and things like that, I mean, what was going through your head? What were you thinking?
Truthfully, I was in protection mode. I was in I've been very used to being under pressure, whether that was as a gymnast as a child or in the stunt work. And I've also been very body aware. So I was just trying to control my breathing, trying to manage the pain, trying to stay conscious in and out of, like, slipping in and out of consciousness, being hyper aware of the things around me, talking to the medical staff that are treating me, and actually cracking jokes as and where I could, just because I've always found that humor is one of the best ways to soften the blow of some of the difficult things we face in life. So yeah, I was really just trying to be as present as I could be in that moment, whilst also trying to not let my mind and my brain race or feel sorry for myself. Stunt work is very much dealing with the problem at hand, and then trying to overcome the problem, whether that is fear or the technical skill of the stunt itself. So I was just applying those lessons to the severe trauma that I was going through at the time.
Right, okay. Gosh, yeah, I can totally imagine. So the transition then from leading, such an active life to living with quite a debilitating disability
Yeah.
must have and still be, very difficult. So what has that experience been like for you?
Well, I was a very active child and a gymnast, and I was very difficult to sit on a chair still in a classroom. You can ask all my old school teachers, and any of them listen to this, they will tell you I was not the best of pupils. So it was very hard for me to adjust to that. Just like when being so active, I felt like my body needed to be in motion for my brain to be to be its performing at its best. So that change, that transition to being paralyzed was a very hard thing to adjust to. But I now just channel that energy in different ways. I've learned to have patience with myself, forgive myself, and ultimately to just find ways with my spinal cord injury. There's a lot of the time I spend in my life actually being disabled. For example, it takes 2 hours to get up in the morning and stuff. Now, in those 2 hours, I can either sit there and make myself feel disabled by focusing on the problem, or I can work out of trying to find a solution. And I've always been a person that tries to find a solution. And in life, you're either a victim or a survivor. I'm very much a survivor. So even though the transition was very hard and arduous, and I think it always came from self-forgiveness first. No one's going to be a perfect person. And if you can forgive yourself for your shortcomings, then you're on the right track to self-improvement all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were talking, earlier about how you're quite good at problem solving and things like that. Do you think that your time in the stunt industry really helped you to become good at problem solving?
Absolutely, yeah. I think in the film industry in general, we've got this, this shot that's written down or it's storyboarded, or we've got this thing like, children flying on broomstick. How are we going to achieve it? So you break everything down to its smallest parts. So like a stunt like a car knockdown is where you get run over by a car. What you would do is you would first have a stationary car and a crash mat on the front of the vehicle, and you'd practice jumping up onto the bonnet and rolling off the side. And then you would bring the car in at 1 mile an hour and jump up on the bonnet and roll off to the side, still with the crash mat in. And then you slowly build up the speed. And then when you're confident enough, you'll take away the crash mat, and then you would do the shot itself. So that's all about rehearsing, and rehearsing anything in life. Yeah, even if it's in your mindset. And Evie, you must know this, right? You spend your life mapping your route in your head. You are, I guess you're probably one of the world's best at understanding your environment by using your other senses. So those lessons of rehearsing in your mindset really helped in the stunt industry, and they really help with living with a disability. So if I'm going to go somewhere new that I've never been to before, then I will use Google Maps, and it will be really handy for me to look at the curbs and the floor space and the local parking, and then if it's a building that I haven't been to before, I ring ahead and ask for their access and stuff. And like, I'm guessing you do the same, right? Your route to school, I bet you know every sound of every bird, every curve that's approaching, your classroom. I bet you know where your seat is, and that's just because, you know, when you live with a disability of any kind, you're forced to be a problem solver. So I'm guessing you are just as good a problem solver as I am.
Well, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I can learn a route quite quickly now, but that's come with time. You know, I can learn a route in about 5 attempts now, but that takes time. And I know a lot. I can navigate around most of my school with my cane, and it's a big school, and that has taken me so long to learn, but I can do it now. And at home, I don't use my cane. I don't even trail with the back of my hand. I just walk around because I know where I am. And actually, one of my favorite things is whenever I have, like, you know, like friends around or whatever, and we'll be walking around the house and they'll go, "Do you not need your cane?" I'm like, "No, it's my house. I know exactly where I'm going." But it comes with time. And I've always said that people with disabilities are some of the most resilient people because, like you say, you've constantly got to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind if I ask you, Evie? Do you use sound resonance quite a lot? So the distances of walls and spaces, and do you map with sound in your mind?
So do you know what? That's a really good question, and one that I don't even think I've thought about much. But I think sound is such an important thing to me because I use it so much. And
Yeah, of course.
one of the things I've always been able to do, and I don't really know how. So if I like square up on a wall and there's a wall on the other side and I'm walking across an open space, I can somehow sense where the other wall is going to be. I have no idea how to describe it, and I think it might be a sound resonance thing, almost like echolocation. But
Yeah.
I can just sense where that wall is, and I don't know how I do it.
Would you like to know something I learned recently that absolutely blew my mind?
I would love to.
Right, so Gothic cathedrals are normally set up in a way of like a crucifix, and then north, south, east, west divide. And when the early Gothic cathedrals were created, like Notre Dame in Paris, the choirs had to adapt the way that they would deliver the music structure. So the church choirs themselves would have to structure the choruses in 4-bar beats. So like 4-bar timing that we have in pop music today. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that all goes back to Gothic cathedrals. So the structure of modern music that we hear today is because of Gothic cathedrals and how they were constructed and how the sound resonated throughout the building. And I just thought that was exceptional.
Oh wow! I mean, that's so cool. I mean, I know a thing or two about time signatures because I do music for GCSE and things like that, but I never even thought about where they would originate from. But that's so cool. I mean, where did you learn that?
Okay, my favorite podcaster in the world. I'm sure it's a little bit. I mean, sometimes he swears, but generally he's got one of the best podcaster ever. Is Blind Boy podcast. He's an Irish guy from Limerick, and he's just been recently diagnosed neurodivergent, and his brain, it's like autistic brain, allows him to deep dive into subjects, and he stumbled across that on Wikipedia, and he will just deep dive into a subject, and he's a fan of music and he's an artist, and just a great podcaster. So I don't know how old you are, Evie, or if you're like mind a bit of swearing, but he touches on some adult subjects, but I generally think he's one of the best creators working in the space.
Oh wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I will definitely have a look at some point. Now you did a Sky documentary called David Holmes, The Boy Who Lived, which was nominated for a BAFTA, which is absolutely incredible. Now, I know that BAFTA don't really recognize the stunt industry within their awards categories. And I was wondering, did that give you some sort of mixed emotions when attending the awards event?
Very much so. I did struggle quite a lot with it, to be honest. It's hard. It's hard to know that my department, my friends, my loved ones within the industry are still risking their lives for the sake of storytelling and not being credited as the artists that they are. I mean, I ask you this, that if we do not celebrate the artists that take the most risks in society, then why do we celebrate Picasso painting a very famous picture called Guernica, or Banksy taking the really risky steps where he spray paints political messages in some really like highly politically charged locations like the West Bank in Palestine? It's hard to sit in a room full of actors, directors, producers, and not feel. I shouldn't have been the only stunt performer there by default with a broken neck, it says a lot that I was the only stunt performer there, and it took me breaking my neck and bearing my pain and my soul in a documentary to get there. So let's hope it sparks a wider conversation, and that my friends and the people that I care dearly about in the stunt industry and the department that I believe, take the biggest risks on a film set for the sake of storytelling, I hope we do get the awards one day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're totally right, and I completely agree with you that that industry should 100% be recognized. I mean, if you could almost create an award to make sure that they were recognized, I'm guessing you would do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very hard because a stunt department is made up of many different people. It's not just the stunt coordinator, there's stunt doubles, there is stunt utility, then there are stunt drivers, force masters, wire teams. I mean, the more complex the actual action of the film, the bigger the outreach and the bigger the department. But I would say if we could get 2 awards, one would be for Best Stunt Coordinator and the second award being for Best Stunt Ensemble, then I think we can cover most bases with those 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on the documentary, the impact that your accident had on your close friends and family was quite noticeable. In society, do you think the impact a disability or a traumatic life event has on those close to the person can often be overlooked?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we wouldn't get by without our loved ones. We wouldn't get by without our help. I recently visited a bunch of children who are carers for their disabled parents, and it was a youth club set up as a non-profit charity. And these kids gather like once a week, and they're allowed to group together in a safe space where they can all just be kids without the pressures of looking after their parents. Now, they should just be kids. There should be enough support in society so that they can just be kids. But we've got a long way to go before the full impact of disability is fully recognised, not just for the individual themselves, but for the family members, for their friends, and for the wider community. If what people don't understand is disability will affect us all at some point in our life, whether they like it or not. Age is not the best of healers, and if we want a society that is acceptable and inclusive for all people, then that requires policy leaders to lead with empathy over the pound note option. And a lot of the time, that empathy will come with recognizing the support and the additional help that families will need, whether that is psychological support or what those kids need with that youth club, or what we need in society, whether that is disabled parking spaces and safe drop curbs, or hearing assistance or through TV, or audio descriptive TV channels and films. I mean, you name it. I'm guessing you encounter, just like I do, many times where you're made to feel like a second-class citizen because of your disability. And I push back at that, and I would always fight for myself, yourself, and everybody else on the spectrum of disability.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's so important that there are people like you who are doing that. And I do think it's about educating people. Like, some people, like you said, disability is going to affect us all at some point in our lives. But there are lots of people who that disability hasn't affected yet. And they are not aware of the hardships that people with disabilities have to face, and the people around them, like those young carers and things like that. And it is about educating people and making them aware, because we're not going to get anywhere if the people in power aren't as aware as the people who have the disabilities.
So can we do a one-for-one education lesson with each other, if that's okay?
I would love to do that, yeah.
Right. So what I'd like to do is describe to you what paralysis feels like, because a lot of people like saying, what does it feel like? And it's very hard to describe, but I think with my conversations with my friends that live with paralysis, I've got a pretty good description. So what paralysis feels like to me is being tightly wrapped in linen, with a lot of pressure against my skin, and then buried up to my armpits in sand, and then plugged into a car battery with electricity running through me. And that's what paralysis feels like in me. So that's my education to you on the actual sensation of paralysis. Now, if you wouldn't mind educating me, Evie. Evie, obviously you sleep, don't you? And I've always been really inquisitive to know is what is dreams to you? How do you interpret your dreams?
Right. First of all, can I just say, I love answering this question. This is one of my favorite questions to answer because it's interesting to me. So, just like when I'm awake, I have no sight whatsoever. That manifests itself in my dreams too. I dream completely through audio. So, there is no visual aspect to my dreams. And the way I like to describe it, imagine watching a movie, but that movie has no visual aspect to it whatsoever. It is literally just audio on a screen. That is what my dreams are like.
Wow. Okay. So it's funny because when I look back at memories in my life, because I grew up on film sets from the age of 14, my memories are like in a film frame of a 16:9 ratio. And I will picture things by the light in the room, or the shadows cast, or the way the camera angle would be if I was like being the camera for that memory. Now, my partner, she reads a lot. And when she goes back on her memories in life, she says she sees a still image, and then at the bottom of the still image, her memories are subtitled because she spent her life reading books. So isn't it funny how we all interpret things a different way?
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Like the fact that you and your partner interpret things so differently, purely based on the life that you lead and the things that you enjoy doing. That's so, so cool. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Also, thank you for kind of describing to me what paralysis feels like. I've never thought about that before, but now you say it does make sense. So thank you so much for educating me on that.
No, honestly, and thank you for sharing your your pathway through dreamland with me.
Not at all. Now, your documentary shines a light on your natural positivity, and that is something I can definitely see talking to you as well. So, how do you continue to have such a positive mindset?
I will always say life is a gift, Evie, isn't it? You know, we are given this gift of life regardless of the challenges we face. Facing challenges is part of the human condition. We are given this gift and it will take things away from us. You know, we get old and we lose our parents, and then we lose our own physical abilities, and then we lose our life. Now, at the age of 25, I lost a lot very quickly in a very, very quick moment. And I have learned it's the language we have about ourselves and the world around us, which directly affects the life we get to live. And I very much love myself. I love my life. I love the world. And I choose to have the right language about that around myself. Now, it's hard. You know, the story of Harry Potter is triumph of light over darkness, and it's a really good motto to live by, but that takes work. And what you must realize is you're going to go out, and yes, we can all moan and we can all have bad days, and we're all entitled to those bad days, but you've got to really think about what you want to put out in the world and what you want to say about yourself. And despite my disability and my physical, appearance and how I have to navigate this difficult world, I still love the fact that I have this joy of life, and I try to celebrate that in any way I can.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I can totally understand that. Now, on your social media, you touch on accessibility. One element being accessible hotel rooms, which are not really big enough for wheelchair users.
Yeah.
Do you think matters like this need to begin to be tackled on a wider scale?
Absolutely, yeah. We need to always put people over profit instead of profit over people. But unfortunately, that is the gripe of capitalism itself. As we are now going through a new industrial revolution with the advent of AI, it's going to potentially benefit myself and yourself in helping us navigate society and the internet and all of those things. But if AI is built up of the large language models that are out there at the moment, then right now I'm a bit concerned that the language around disability on the internet is not the most positive. So there's a very real chance of the algorithm discriminating against us. In the same way the hotels discriminate against us, in the same way the public transport system discriminates against us. So what I would say to the large companies out there and anyone listening is, why don't you incorporate people across the spectrum of disability at the point of construction? Whether you're constructing an algorithm or a hotel or a public transport system, why don't you incorporate the 10 to 15% of society like me and you that are on the spectrum of a disability or live with a permanent ailment? Because the older we get and the bigger the aging population, the more the infrastructure is going to be needed and implemented. So why don't we be the forethought instead of the afterthought?
Yes, I could not agree with you more on that. And I mean, for us, it just feels like second nature. Why wouldn't you incorporate disability into design? Why wouldn't you think about that? But I think it's just because people don't consider it. And one of the things I've always thought, it would be really good for a lot of companies to actually talk to and interact with people with disabilities, because they are the people who are going to know their access requirements. They are going to know what they need. And also, one of the things I've talked to guests on the podcast previously about as well is that sometimes when you design something so it's accessible, it can also benefit the able-bodied community as well.
Massively. And like it's not just like benefiting able-bodied people, disabled people, but it generally is just including the whole range of society. Now, one of the answers, again, I'll go back to profit over people. You and I, well, most people can tell me when Gay Pride Month is, because they, a whole month where companies are able to stick a rainbow banner on their flag and say that they're inclusive. Now, nobody can tell me when Disability Pride Month is. Nobody knows that. It's the whole month of July, but nobody knows. And the reason for that is simply because it's much cheaper to stick a rainbow flag on your company logo and say you're inclusive than it is to adapt your buildings and employ people across the range of disabilities and also be willing to incorporate their individual needs. So again, profit over people, unfortunately.
Yep, absolutely. Now, you do lots of fundraising for the Stanmore Hospital, where you spent lots of time as a patient. Can you tell me about some of the fundraising events you have organised over the years?
Yeah, so with my help of good friend Amy Stairs, who's my producer on the documentary, The Boy Who Lived, Amy's always every year arranged a David Holmes Cricket Cup, where we have two teams, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. Some of the cast members come back in and we have a cricket match with some friends and family members from the UK film industry. It's a very family-orientated day. We do finger painting and face painting, and there's a bouncy castle and a barbecue, and it's just a nice day for the stunt crews to get together and some of the film crew members to get together and just have a great day. So that's one of the events, and then we've done Harry Potter quizzes together. We've done we have an auction, and now I've just started to work with a few other charities as well. One of them being Red Bull Wings for Life charity, and they are a charity that specialises in spinal cord injury rehabilitation and recovery, and they give a lot of money to the research projects to hopefully find some sort of potential improvements in recovering back a spinal cord injury. And I'm planning to, if they will let me, I'm planning to get strapped to the top of an aeroplane and be the first non-walking wing walk in the world.
Oh, wow. I mean, that would be incredible. I mean, where did the idea for that come from?
From me, I always like to do stunts, and I miss flying, whether that be on a broomstick or through the air on a trampoline. So if I can get strapped to the top of an aeroplane in a wheelchair and go for a non-walking wing walk, I would love to do so.
Oh, do you know what? I do genuinely think that you will be able to do that. And I mean, that sounds absolutely phenomenal, along with all the fundraising events that you do. Now, one of the most reoccurring takeaways that I've gotten from chatting to guests on the podcast is the importance of a support network. Now, I know that one of your really close friends now acts as a carer for you.
Yeah.
Do you think having a strong support network is a really big help for you?
Yeah, I mean, words can't describe how much I value the loved ones in my life, and we can all take our loved ones for granted. I do so sometimes myself, but I genuinely think I wouldn't have survived this or had the positive outlook or the mindset that I do if it wasn't for the love that I have in my life. I'm very fortunate. I have got wonderful parents, a great family, really, really good friends, and in times we've all felt lonely and we've all felt, slightly, like there's no one to talk to and to turn to. But my network within the spinal cord injury community, and my friends, my family, and my wider community, I couldn't live without them, and I couldn't be more grateful for them. So, yeah, very, very lucky.
Yes, definitely. Now, what would you say has been your proudest moment so far?
Honestly, I would say breaking my neck never changed who I am. I've always been that young boy with big dreams and big hopes and a big imagination. And I still live to be the not so young boy anymore, but with still the same hopes, dreams, love, and imagination in my life. And some people, they would have, and rightly so, have gone through trauma like I've lived with, and can feel very negative and like, full of hate and blame. Now, I learned early on, if I rebuilt my life through hate and the lens of hate and blame, I'll always see the rest of my life through that lens. And I refuse to let my accident or my disability define the man that I am. So for that, I'm very proud of myself.
Honestly, I mean, you totally should be. I mean, that is I think that's such an important message. I've definitely met a lot of people, and one of the things I hear quite a lot, and I would imagine you do too, is, oh, you're really inspirational. And
yeah.
I'm guessing that that's something
If
you've
I
heard
had
too.
a pound, if I had a pound, Evie, I'd be a very rich man by now. What that is people not really having the right understanding of the language. And also sometimes when I hear that, 10% of it I take with, oh, you're just weaker than I am, and you don't see that you'd be able to survive the way I do. And then 80% I take with humility, and I go, thanks very much, I really appreciate that. And then the last 10% I just go, oh, thanks for the ego stroke, So yeah, I think the language around disability is always going to be like that, because people find it hard because they want to empathize, and they try to put themselves in your situation, and they just don't see how they could handle it. But no, generally, Evie, as we both know, we're alive, and we're thankful for that. And we have the capacity to have the full range of human emotions and the full range of human experiences within the limits of our disability. And I believe it's our own imagination and limitations, and not anybody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think a lot of people perceive disability as this negative thing. There are no positives to it. You're disabled, and that's that, and you can't live life to the fullest because of your disability. But you can. It's just about, like you say, being a little bit, positive about it.
Yeah, and also just be willing for the hard work, because in life, nothing is worth it unless it's hard work. My partner, she is also a quadriplegic like I am. It takes a team of 4 people to get us close enough to have a kiss and a cuddle. But do you know what? That makes that kiss and a cuddle so much more special.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. Now, what would you say then are your aspirations for the future?
To keep being me, to keep doing my things, I would like to still continue to be a storyteller and work within the film industry. If you ever get bored, Evie, and search Wikipedia, have a look at the Halifax explosion of 1917. It's an amazing, terribly tragic story, but an amazing Wikipedia read. And that is when the largest man-made explosion of its time happened, when 2 ships collided in Nova Scotia in Canada in a river. One of the ships was carrying the largest ammunition resupply after World War One, and unfortunately, they caught fire, the ships, and one of them the one with the ammunition drifted to the bank and caused the largest explosion of its time. I would love to tell that story in a HBO miniseries format, utilizing all of my old friends from Harry Potter. So I need a very large budget, a very big team from HBO, and all my friends to come back and work with me, which they've already said they'd be interested in. So I would like to tell that story, and I'm putting it out there on your podcast and a few other platforms. For hopefully, you manifest things in life, and this is a dream of mine to tell that story in the right way, So there you go. I'm manifesting that. One of the millions of things that I'm manifesting, including getting strapped to the top of an aeroplane.
Yeah, there's that as well. I see no reason at all why you would not be able to do that at some point, and I would not be surprised if in a few years' time that is something that I see on HBO. Like, I see no reason why that would not be possible. And I think, like you say, it would be such an amazing story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, period drama, Harry Potter cast, already got a fan base, and an amazing story that not many people know about. So, yeah, and a format that they've already got tried and tested because they've done the Chernobyl miniseries, which was very successful a few years ago. So, yeah, we can but dream, my dear.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you. I genuinely can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today. I mean, you are such an amazing person. I could genuinely talk to you for hours. I've had so much fun talking to you. You've taught me so much, and I thank you so much. There are so many compliments I could give you, and none of them would sum you up properly. But what I will say is thank you for coming on the podcast and giving me your time. It genuinely means the world, and I will always treasure the memories I have from this. Thank you so much.
Oh, honestly, Evie, what an honor to be a guest on your amazing platform. And actually, one of my dreams is to come and watch the Isle of Man TT one year. So if I'm coming, me and you are going to grab a coffee together for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That would be amazing. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you to my audience for listening. And I will see you all next time.